Today, I'm going to be showing you the top 50 settings that you need to change on your Samsung Galaxy S25. Now, some of these settings are going to be security related, others will help save battery or improve performance, and some will even make the camera better and unlock new features. All of these are going to be impactful changes that will make your experience using your Galaxy phone even better. As always, I will leave all the purchase links down in the description. Alright, so to kick things off, let's take a look at some essential security settings to change to make your Galaxy phone more secure. And the first thing we're going to do is turn on a feature called App Protection. And to do this, we're going to jump into the Settings app, which is where we're going to be spending most of our time today in this video. And then we're going to scroll all the way down to where we find Device Care right here. Tap into that. And then scroll to where we find App Protection, and then we're going to tap into that. And then here, we're going to turn on App Protection. Now I'm going to scan the phone here and briefly explain to you what this does. Now, App Protection will essentially scan all the applications that are on your phone periodically in the background to check for things like malware or even viruses. Now, this is the kind of feature that you hope to never need, but is reassuring to know that is running in the background. Not only if you download apps from the Google Play Store or the Samsung Store, but especially if you sideload apps and download them from your browser. And if ever anything is found, you will be alerted to it and then be prompted to remove that application right away. So definitely something that I recommend you keep on. And as you can see, you can always do a manual scan if you want as well. Great, now I want to go back and talk about unlocking your phone. There's various ways to do this for the Galaxy S25, which I really like. However, some ways are better than others. And to run you through this, what we're going to do is go onto the main page of settings and scroll down to where we find lock screen and AOD. And then in here, we're going to tap on the first option, screen lock and biometrics, then quickly type in your device's PIN. And there we go. And in here, we have all the different ways to unlock your phone. Now, the two that I recommend are going to be PIN as well as fingerprints. These are going to be the most secure ways to unlock your phone. The ultrasonic fingerprint reader that is on your Galaxy S25 is super reliable. It is super fast and really the best way to unlock your phone, as of course your fingerprint is unique to you. I know some people have asked me about face recognition, and while this does of course work, it is not going to be as secure or reliable as using your fingerprint scanner. The face unlock on the Galaxy S25 is simply not as advanced as say Face ID is on the iPhone. So where this phone really shines is with its fingerprint technology, and I really recommend you use the fingerprint scanner. In addition here, the PIN is also going to be the most secure way to unlock your phone versus using something like pattern or the swipe pattern. And also the same goes for password. Password is actually even better than your PIN. Use either of these two in combination with your fingerprint. You can even add multiple fingerprints. For example, I like to add both thumbs in case I use my phone in one hand or the other. And these will be the best ways to unlock and the most secure ways to unlock your Galaxy S25. Now, next I want to run you through a really important setting that's going to help secure your data if your phone is ever lost or stolen. So to do this, we are going to jump back one page, and then we're going to go into secure lock settings. Once again, type in your PIN. There we go. And then here we have the option to auto factory reset after 20 failed password attempts. Now, what does this mean? Well, let's say your phone is lost or stolen. The first thing that person is probably going to try and do is brute force their way into the phone by guessing your PIN or your password. And in this setting, if they get it wrong 20 times in a row, your phone is automatically going to erase itself, meaning that when your phone is no longer secure and with you, at least your data will be, because that will just be wiped and you don't have to worry about that getting lost. And ultimately, your data is what matters most. So this is a feature I do recommend turning on for most people. The only exception here is if, say, you are a young parent with kids who may want to try guess your password and get into your phone that way. You don't want to have your data removed, of course, regularly. So you want to make sure that you're in a position where that won't happen. But for most people, again, if your phone is ever lost or stolen, this here is a great peace of mind feature to know that at least your data is safe. The last security setting I want to show you has to do with notifications. So we're going to go back now to the main page of settings, and then we're going to scroll a little bit down from the top here to where we find notifications. And then in here, we have lock screen notifications. Tap into that. And then here we have the option to either show content or to hide content. Now, I recommend you switch this to hide content. What does this mean? Well, let me give you a quick example. Let's say you receive a text message on your phone. On the lock screen, it's going to show that you've received a text message and show you who that's from. However, the content of that message will not be shown until the phone is unlocked. So you'll see that you have a message, you won't miss it, but again, the content won't be shown until the phone is unlocked. This way, it's just more private, it's more secure, and this way, the content of those messages will only be shown to you, not to anyone who may have access to your phone. Right, now this next feature is not really a setting, but something I do still want to show you because it kind of has to do with settings, and that is that you can now actually search within the settings app, and it will also use Galaxy AI to help you find a setting. So if, say, there's a setting that I've shown you throughout this video and you're not sure where it was, or you might remember the name from it, chances are you can actually search it up to find it there. So for example, one-handed mode is actually the next thing we're going to be looking at. It'll show you right here, oh, that's also found in advanced features, and you can enter it, tap to enter it right there, and that's where you find the setting. So really useful, again, to just find your settings and to be able to search for them on your device. On the subject of one-handed mode, that is the next thing we're going to look at, and this is a setting I highly recommend you turn on, whether you are on the larger Ultra, the larger Plus, or even the regular S25. It can be really useful to have that one-handed mode activated. So to do this, you do have to first activate this feature. So in settings, we're going to scroll down to where we find advanced features right here, that little yellow icon right there. And then we're going to scroll to where we find one-handed mode, and you want to flip the switch to turn this on. Now, how do you activate this? Well, what you do is you want to do a small swipe along the bottom of the display right here, like so. As you can see, the screen now essentially shrinks by around 50% or so, making it much easier if you have your device in one hand to reach your upper corners of the display, or say reach the other end of the keyboard if you are typing a one-handed text. So super useful. You can even move this around up or down. As you can see, you can also move it to the left or right, depending on if you're left-handed like me or right-handed. So really useful feature. And of course, to expand your display, once again, you want to simply repeat, let me try that one more time, repeat the same gesture, and as you can see, your screen has now been expanded again. So one-handed mode, super useful, no matter which Galaxy phone you're on. I highly recommend you turn this setting on. And this next one is simple but really useful, and that is to simply give your phone a name. And this can make it a lot easier to find your phone in the midst of devices. Let's say you're at an airport or somewhere busy and you're trying to connect to it via Bluetooth. It's just great to know which phone is yours so you don't accidentally connect to the wrong phone. And to do this, we're going to scroll all the way to the bottom in the settings page to where we find about this phone. And then we're going to tap on rename, and here you can literally name it whatever you like. Name it something that of course you can identify so that you know your phone is yours. The next setting we're going to be looking at has to do with this right here, and that is the side button, as this can be customized. So to do this, we're going to jump into settings and then tap onto advanced features once again. And then in here, we're going to tap onto side button. Now here we have two options. First of all, we can enable a double press, something I do recommend, as that will allow you to link a shortcut to a double press of that button. And you can have that trigger pretty much any application. You can choose, for example, which app you'd like it to launch. You can also have it trigger a system function, like for example, to start a voice recording or to turn on your torch, which is what I use. Very simple, but also very useful. So a simple double tap of that button is going to turn on the torch. You can't see it, but believe me, it is on, and then tapping it again here will turn that off. Now, secondly, we also have the option to choose what we want a long press to do. So you can have that launch either your smart assistant, which is actually a lot smarter now, by the way, with One UI 7, which is the new Bixby Google Assistant hybrid, which I think is quite good. But you can also have it set off, show up the power off menu if you like as well. By the way, a quicker way to find that is simply swipe down from the top right, and there's your power button as well to quickly turn off your device. Speaking of the quick settings menu that I just showed you here, One UI 7 actually brings a whole new quick settings panel. As you can see, this will look very different compared to the previous One UI 6 that you'll find on older Galaxy phones or ones that haven't updated yet. And now you have a completely separate menu for your quick settings toggles as well as your notifications. It completely separates the two. So what you want to do is swipe down from the center to get to your notifications, and then swipe down from the right to get to your quick settings panel. Now, you can also change this, change the layout and modify this to make it even more useful for you. By the way, also you can swipe between the two by simply swiping from the left and right. So it's a useful little shortcut as well if you want to quickly go between your notifications as well as your quick settings. But let's take a look at changing these quick settings and finding a way to customize them. So what you want to do is you want to tap on the little pencil icon up here. As you can see, the quick settings are now going to be grouped into separate panels. These panels can be picked up and literally moved around so you can rearrange the order. So I prefer to have, the most used ones along the top. These will be easiest to reach, and you can always scroll down to add more as well. And then individual panels can be edited too. So for example, this panel here, we can tap on edit, and here you have all of your familiar quick settings toggles, and you can simply tap and drag new ones in if you like, press a little minus button to remove them. See, we have pages to choose from. And again, I recommend you keep your most used ones along the top, as these ones here are going to be most visible. And you can also expand or extract, how do you say, expand and despan? No. Minimize, there you go, minimize the quick settings menu as well, or this particular panel to have less or more shown. I think 8 is a great place to go. And then once you're done, you can tap on done. And this is how you customize the new quick settings toggle page on One UI 7. Ooh, this next one is going to be particularly exciting, and that has to do with battery life and battery health. Now, these are settings that I always talk to my friends about, and first thing I do is I tell them, change these settings, turn on this feature, etc., etc. It's going to make your phone last longer. So the first thing we're going to look at is extending your device's battery health. So to do this, first of all, we're going to turn on a feature called battery protection. So to do this, we're going to jump into settings and then scroll all the way back down to where we find the familiar device care right here. And then we're going to tap onto battery. That's this first option right here. And then what you want to do is turn on this feature called battery protection. And in here, if we tap onto the setting, you actually have different types of battery protection. So let me briefly explain what each of these does. So this first one here, basic protection, what that's going to do is once your phone charges to 100%, it's going to stop charging and then let the battery gradually deplete to 95%, at which point it will once again recharge to 100. This way, your battery won't be constantly cycling between 100% and 99%, 100%, 99%. So this here will help decrease the wear slightly on the battery. However, the second option, which is the one that I recommend for most, the one that I personally use, is going to be your adaptive feature. So what that's going to do is it's going to track your typical charging habits. So let's say at night at 10 p.m. you plug in your phone when you go to sleep. Who am I kidding? More like 11 p.m. And what it's going to do is it's first going to charge your phone all the way up to 80%. However, wait with the remaining 20% till closer to when you typically wake up and unplug your phone, let's say 7 a.m. And then that's going to stagger the charge. Your phone won't charge as fast, it won't produce as much heat, and it's going to produce less wear on the battery. And particularly if you're charging your phone every night, like most of us do, this will really save your battery over time. It's going to help preserve your battery health and help it last longer. Now, this last setting is really for the diehards out there. And that does involve some sacrifice. So this last one here is going to be maximum battery protection. And what that's going to do is it's going to permanently cap your battery capacity at 80%. So no matter how much you charge your phone, it will never go beyond 80%. And this here is scientifically proven to be the best sort of charge to keep your battery at, which, avoid 100%, avoid 0%, keep it at around that 80% mark to help preserve its health over time. Of course, the downside is, though, that you do sacrifice that top 20% of battery life, which for me is too big a sacrifice. I like to know that I at least have access to my full battery's capacity. After all, I did pay for it. So I prefer to go for adaptive, which still gives you all the capacity while still giving you some of those battery protection features. Right, so now that we know how to preserve the battery health on your phone, let's take a look at at a really important battery life saving feature, and that has to do with notifications. So let's go back to the main page here of settings, and then we're going to scroll down to where we find notifications. Tap into that, and then here we have app notifications, and this is going to give you a comprehensive list of all of your applications that want to send you notifications. Now, chances are out the box, pretty much every application is going to want to bother you with notifications, but I would say half, if not more, don't need to. For example, shopping applications, right? You don't need a notification from them, or certain utility applications, you don't need that either. The ones that are important are going to be, for example, messaging apps, perhaps finance-related applications, maps applications, certain social media, right? These things you want to turn on and want to allow notifications from. Others you want to turn off. Now, this is important not only because it means less distractions throughout the day, but also because it's going to save you battery, right? Every time a notification comes in, your phone is going to vibrate, your screen is going to activate, and as well as your speaker, and this really adds up over time, especially if, say, you have over 100 notifications coming in per day. So I really recommend going through your app notifications list and kind of auditing it, right? You want to turn off and individually set which you want to allow and which you don't want to allow. So you can go and flip the toggle to turn it on or off. You can even customize the way in which a notification is delivered. So let's say I take smart switch here. You can choose to allow a notification, disallow or allow a notification to show up on the lock screen. You can do that as well. Turn on or off sound and vibration. So you can also customize it, but I like to just turn off a lot of these, as you can see, and that's going to save you some battery over time and a lot of distraction throughout the day. Next, I want to take a look at multitasking, one of my favorite features of the Samsung Galaxy phones. I think they do it so well. I love the ability to have two apps running at once. However, there are a few settings that we can change to make this experience even better. And the first thing we're going to do is enable a setting that will allow us to use split screen multitasking for all applications. You may have noticed that not all applications actually work out of the box with split screen multitasking. However, we can change that. So to do this, we're going to jump into settings, scroll back down to where we find advanced features right here. And then in here, we're going to enter a submenu called Labs. And this is where you'll find certain experimental features, including the ability here to allow multi-window or split screen multitasking for every application. So even things like games. I know games in particular often don't work with multitasking, but when you turn on this feature, turn out to work pretty well. So I definitely recommend you turn this on, and that's going to allow this split screen multitasking that you see here for all applications. Now, speaking of multitasking, now that we're here in the menu, let me go ahead and show you a couple of neat little tips and tricks / settings here that make this even better. So first of all, what you can do is tap on this 3-dot menu in the bottom, in the center here, and you can actually swap and rotate the applications to quickly cycle and switch between the two. Of course, you can also press and hold this bar here to expand one app over the other. You can prioritize and give more screen space if you like to one versus the other. And if, say, there is a app pair like this that you really like or that you often find yourself using, like here I've got Amazon and YouTube, Amazon and Safari, Chrome, I mean, not Safari. What you can do is actually save this app pair to your lock screen. So to do this, we'll tap on this menu here in the 3-dot menu in the center, tap on the little star icon, and here you can actually save this app pair to your home screen. And if we go back to the home screen here, as you can see, we now have a new icon right there, and that will allow us to tap into it, automatically launch those two applications. You can see it's even saved the way I divided the screen here proportionately between the apps. You can see I've got one here on my lock screen. Super useful, probably something I use every day. And I want to show you a fantastic security and privacy setting to enable, and that is the ability to lock an application. So let's say you ever hand your phone to someone to show them a message, a map, location, whatever it may be, and you don't want that person to be able to swipe home and go through the rest of your phone. This is perfect for that scenario. But of course, this is a setting that you do need to enable. So to do this, we are first going to jump into settings. And then over on the main page of settings, we are going to scroll to where we find security and privacy. There it is. And then in here, we're going to tap onto where we find, if we scroll down here to more security settings. And then here, what you want to do is turn on allow apps to be pinned. And once we've turned this on, let me give you an example here. Let me launch an application, let's say the gallery, and I'm going to, let's say, show this here picture of the Galaxy Watch right there. And let's say I want to lock this application. So what I'm going to do is open up the app switcher by swiping up and holding to where I get this multitasking view, and then tap on the app icon on the top here. And as you can see, I then have the option now, the new setting to pin this application. And once I tap that, as you can see, this app is now pinned. I cannot swipe home. I cannot see my quick toggles. I cannot see my notifications. This app is now pinned, which is great for security. Again, great for privacy, especially if you do ever need to hand your phone to someone. And to unpin an application, you simply want to swipe up, hold, and then as you can see, you'll be prompted to either type in your PIN or use your fingerprint sensor like I just did. And voila, as you can see, the app is now unpinned and I can access the rest of my phone. Another setting I want to show you is the ability to keep an app always open and running in the background. Just because an application may still be open here in the app switcher doesn't mean it won't occasionally close and refresh. And in some cases, let's say online, like you're filling in an online form, that may mean having to fill it all in from scratch. So for example, let's say for travel, I had to do a check-in recently and I needed to get my passport number. So I filled in the form. I then had to go home, go to my pictures, pull up my passport to pick up that number. And when I went back to Chrome, that page was refreshed and I had to re-enter all of those details. Very annoying. And there's actually a way to avoid this from happening by simply forcing an application to remain open and run in the background. So to do this, you want to have an application like Chrome here, I think is a great example, and you want to swipe up and hold again to the multitasking menu, tap on the app icon here in the top, and then here we have keep open. As you can see, you now see a little lock appear on that screen, and this application, no matter what else I do on my phone, will keep running. There will be some RAM allocated to make sure that this app does not refresh to retain the data. And of course, to stop this from occurring, simply tap on a little lock, and then now the application will refresh if it needs to. And now let's talk about some camera settings, as there's a few settings that I definitely recommend you change to get the most out of this powerful camera and to make it even better and actually result in better quality photos. So to do this, first of all, let's take a look at the new camera app, as it has slightly changed in One UI S7. As you can see, it is now much more minimalistic. We get fewer toggles. We just have your main photo modes on the bottom here, photo video modes, and then we have much less settings here along the top. Super nice. I like it. I think it's a little cleaner, easier to use as well. First of all, let me show you a couple essential settings. So first of all, that is how to change your camera megapixel. So over here, you can see on the top, we have 12 megapixel. I can actually tap that to change it to 50. Now 50 is going to give you the full resolution quality of what this camera has to offer. Of course, it does have a 50 megapixel sensor. So you want to take 50 megapixel photos to really take advantage of that full sensor and every pixel that it has. Now, the advantages here is that your photos are going to be a greater detail, especially when you zoom in. So maybe for those special occasions or moments where you really want that higher quality photo, I recommend switching over to 50 megapixels. Now, the downside is though that storage, these pictures are going to be significantly larger. So probably 2.5 times larger than a 12 megapixel photo. So your storage will fill up more quickly. That's why I said maybe only do this for the special occasions, but for your average picture of your coffee order, I think 12 megapixels should be fine. But here, having that quick toggle, simply tap the megapixel number there to change the setting and increase your megapixel count. Really great to do this on the fly. And then kind of similar to photo, we also have these settings here in video. So let me take you through the best resolutions to use. So in video, on the top right here, we have the option to change from either, change the frame rate as well as the resolution. Now by default, it's probably going to be set to FHD and 30, and this is going to basically shoot in regular high definition at 30 FPS. This will be fine for most, although I do recommend switching over to UHD, which is going to be 4K, and that's going to give you a better resolution. I think today there's a lot of 4K TVs out there, and they've also become pretty storage efficient, so the storage isn't too bad with this. So I recommend going to UHD for that best quality video while still having a reasonable frame rate of 30 FPS. I would only really switch to 60 if you need to slow the footage down. Now you do also have the option here to go all the way up to 8K, and while I think it is impressive that this phone can shoot in 8K, I don't really think you should. There aren't any real 8K TVs out there yet, or at least not many. Same with TVs or phones. Even most websites don't support 8K footage yet, so I don't recommend shooting 8K, as it's also going to dramatically drain your battery and take up so much storage on your phone. I recommend sticking to that middle ground sweet spot of UHD, in other words 4K, at 30 FPS. All right, so those are your resolutions for photo and video, but we're going to go even deeper and dive deep into the camera settings. So what you can do here is tap on this little 4-dot menu on the right hand side, and then you see the settings icon. We're going to tap into that, and let's take a look. This now opens an entire camera settings window here. And in here, what I want to show you is, first of all, intelligent optimization. Now, this is a setting that by default is going to be set to maximum, and this I think for most people is fine. What it's going to do is it's just going to take a millisecond or so before taking every picture between you pressing the shutter button and then taking the picture to help optimize the quality, the exposure, the shutter speed, everything, all those settings of your image to make sure it turns out as best as possible. Now, if you do want to take pictures really quickly in quick succession, like let's say you are taking pictures of a sporting event or something and you want to be able to just click, burst that shutter button and take as many pictures as you want, then you want to turn this intelligence optimization and set it to minimum, as it's going to spend less time doing that and just immediately snap the photo. So again, in those sport situations, I would definitely put it to minimum, and in those normal, average, everyday scenarios, to get a slightly better looking image, keep it set at maximum. Now, a setting beneath that I definitely recommend you turn off, however, is Scene Optimizer, and this I believe is on by default, unfortunately, and I found this to not really work so well. So what this is going to do is attempt to create what is the best scene for your picture. So it's going to sort of guess where and in what setting you're taking your photo, and then change the lighting, the white balance settings, and the color settings accordingly. In my experience, I find it to often overdo this. For example, if you are in an area that's kind of dark, it's going to dramatically increase the brightness, making your picture very grainy and blurry. Or if you're outside, it's going to make the colors way too vibrant, make it almost look like a cartoon. So I think it goes too far. I think the default settings are actually really great. So I suggest you turn this off and just take the picture how the camera originally does. And I think the Samsung, especially in recent years, have done a great job at improving their color science and making their pictures very true to life while still having a little bit of that extra pop without taking it too far. Right, so now we're going to go back to where we find advanced picture settings right here. And in here, we're going to change the format. So I recommend using JPEG. Now, JPEG, I think, is going to be the best for most. Now, in here, we can also change it to RAW if we like. Now, RAW, the difference between RAW and JPEG, in short, is RAW is going to capture much more of the image data, right, including the color data. And this is going to give you much more options in settings. If, say, you want to change things like your white balance or your exposure, you can actually do that without losing image quality, which is great for professionals. However, most professionals are probably not shooting on their smartphone. So in that sense, JPEGs are going to be much better to use. In my opinion, the quality that you end up sacrificing is minimal. The difference is very small. And it's going to save you a lot of storage. A JPEG image compared to a RAW image is about 1/8 the size. So let's say 2 to 3 megabytes versus 25 or so for a RAW image. Maybe 20 or so. So it's a lot smaller. It means you can take many more photos on your phone. It's going to take up less battery, and it will take those pictures more quickly too. So all in all, I recommend just sticking to the JPEG format. And then here as well, what we also have the option is to turn on or off high efficiency photos. What this is going to do is it's going to help save some more storage by changing the format or the file type from JPEG to HEIF. Now, HEIF I think is fine for most people. One thing to note is that HEIF files are not accepted on all applications or websites, so it may be that you have to convert. If that's something you don't want to bother with, just turn this off and set it to JPEG. I think that really is the happy medium that I personally use, and that I recommend you do too. And then we're going to scroll down to the video section of this settings page here. And the first setting I really recommend you turn off is auto FPS. Now, what that's going to do is it's going to change the frame rate while you're recording the video in order to attempt to retain the exposure of your shot. So say you're going from a very bright scene to a dark scene, it's going to lower the frame rate to keep the image bright. Now, I can understand the purpose behind this, but in reality, it makes your video look very choppy. So if you're going to a darker scene, it's going to look almost glitchy or laggy. Like it'll look more like a slideshow than a smooth video. And especially as a content creator myself, I never want my FPS, my frame rate to change while I am filming. I rather just be in control of that, set it before I'm filming and have it be consistent. It's going to look the best, believe me. So definitely recommend you turn this off. And then going back here, we have tracking autofocus, something I recommend you turn on. I think the Galaxy S25 series do a fantastic job at keeping locked on a focus, whether it be a person, if you're talking to camera, or say an object as well. And then here along the bottom, we have the composite guide. So composition guide, this is going to be grid line. So that's going to give you that rule of thirds, which will split the display into thirds, as well as your center line. And this is something I recommend you turn on, as it's a great way to, a subtle way as well, to help you align your shots and basically make your alignment of the footage look better. Great, so from the camera settings, we're going to now go back to the phone settings, and in this case, we're going to improve the sound quality. So to do this, we're going to go into the main page of settings and then scroll down to where we find sound and vibration. And then in here, first of all, we can actually change the vibration intensity, which I think is actually really useful because this way, depending on how intensely your phone vibrates from your pocket, you'll be able to sort of tell what has come in. So for example, we can turn down system vibrations and media vibrations. This way, if it is a system notification or media related notification, my phone won't vibrate as heavily. However, if it is something important, like say a call or a message, it will vibrate more intensely. And this way, from my pocket, I can kind of tell what's coming in. So this is something I definitely recommend you adjust this setting right here. Now, the next setting we're going to look at is turning on a feature called Dolby Atmos. So to do this, we're going to scroll down to where we find sound quality and effects. And then in here, you want to turn on Dolby Atmos. Now, I'm honestly not sure why this isn't on by default, as what this is going to do is it's going to give you an increased frequency, range of frequency for your audio. So you're going to get more details in the higher ends of your frequencies, as well as in the lower ends, right? Both in the bass and in the treble, and actually results in improved audio quality, particularly if, of course, you are using headphones. So this is something I definitely recommend you turn on. And beneath that, we have the option to turn on or off an equalizer. Now, by default, this is going to be balanced, which is what I recommend most people have. But if, say, you really like the bass, you can also turn up the lower frequencies, which you're going to find on the left-hand side, to increase the bass if you like as well. And there's also a couple of presets, for example, your treble boost or your bass boost. As I said, that's going to increase those lower frequencies. But I like to keep this balanced. But if you do want to have a system-wide EQ, this is where you find it. Of course, one of the best features and the most powerful features of the Galaxy S25 is its incredible display, but there are ways to make it better through some essential settings that I'm going to be showing you right now. So let's go ahead and improve the display. So first of all, what we're going to do is turn on the always on display and make it better. So in settings, what we're going to do is jump into settings and then scroll down to where we find lock screen and AOD right here. And then we're going to turn on the always on display. And then in here, we now also have the option to modify this further. So first of all, you can choose or whether or not to show your wallpaper. So the pros here is that, of course, it will show your wallpaper. There's a little preview window right there, which is great because you can see a picture of your loved ones or, dog or whatever you may have. But of course, the downside is your screen will be a little bit brighter and maybe more distracting. So some people like to turn this off and only have the clock show, only have those essentials show. You can also show or hide the new Now bar to go through your quick system functions like, say, your music player or your voice memos, something like that. And you also have the option here to choose when you want to show. And this thing, I think is a really useful setting because you don't always want your always on display to show, at least not, for example, when your phone is in your pocket or at night when it is charging by your bedside. So I like to set this to auto, as this is also going to help preserve some battery over time, as your display won't always be on, but it will be on when you need it to, like, for example, when you're working and you have your phone by your desk like so. But then after a couple of minutes, or if, say, it is in your pocket or sleeping, it will automatically turn off. So that's something I definitely recommend you set. You can also have it set on a schedule that works too. Say, again, bedtime, you have it off. During the day, you have it on. But I like to set it to auto. I think it does a good job there at preserving battery health, battery life, while still being on when it is needed. Right, and then let's go into the main display settings. So over on the main page of settings, we're going to scroll down to where we find, where is it? There it is, display. And then in here, we're going to have the option, first of all, to switch between light and dark mode. I like both. I actually use both. So what you can do is tap onto your settings here, and then you can set it to a schedule. So you can have the schedule set on a time frame, for example, sunset to sunrise, which is what I personally use. That way, during the day when I'm using my phone, it is going to be bright and easy to see in light mode. But then at night, to protect my eyes, it's going to be much darker. So I recommend you set it up to a schedule like I have here. And beneath that, we have your brightness toggle, and we also have the option to turn on or off adaptive brightness, which is basically auto brightness. Now, I recommend you turn this on. I have it off right now because I'm filming and I need the brightness to be consistent, but normally speaking, I always turn this on. It's also going to help preserve your battery. Beneath that, we have motion smoothness. Now, what is this? Motion smoothness is essentially going to alter the refresh rate of your display. So by default, the Galaxy S25 has a 1 to 120 hertz refresh rate, in which it's going to adapt, and depending on what you're doing. So if you're scrolling, if there's a lot of movement on screen, it's going to go to 120 FPS to keep the image nice and smooth, as you can see here on the left. But if, say, you're on a static page of text, it's actually going to lower the refresh rate to about 1 to 10 hertz to help preserve battery health and battery life. And this is something that I think is perfect, and I recommend you set yours to as well. Now, you do also have the option here to change this to standard, and what that's going to do is it's going to lock the refresh rate at 60 hertz, which is fine, but I think if you're paying for this phone with this really nice smooth 120 hertz refresh rate, you want to get that 120 hertz refresh rate. So I suggest setting this to adaptive, and again, because it is adaptive, it won't be running at that high refresh rate always. It will tone it down when it can to help preserve your battery. So the difference here isn't as great as you might think, and I think from an experience perspective, keeping it at adaptive is really the way to go. Now, beneath that, we have an option called Eye Comfort Shield. Now, I'm going to go ahead and activate this, and as you can see, the display gets a little bit more orange, a little bit more warmer. What that's going to do is it's going to adapt the color output of the display to match the room around you, your surroundings. And that's going to help make it more pleasant to look at. And this is something that, normally speaking, I like to turn on. The only time where I turn this off is when, say, I am editing photos or videos, in which case I want the display to be as accurate as possible, and I don't want the colors to be changed. So in that case, I turn it off, but most of the time I like to have this on. But of course, because I'm filming now, I turn this off to keep the display consistent. And also beneath that, we have your screen mode. Now, screen mode is going to basically choose how you want the color profile to look. The difference here, as you can see, isn't that great. Basically, between natural, your colors are going to be slightly more toned down, a little bit more accurate, and then in vivid, they're going to pop just that little bit more. You can also change the white balance here manually if you like. Here's a couple example images to show you the difference. Personally, I think Vivid is the way to go. Now, on older phones, older Samsung phones, I used to set this to natural, but these days, I think Samsung has really toned down the Vivid to not make it too exaggerated, and I think it actually gives a nice little signature Samsung pop to the color output of your display. So I like to keep this set to Vivid, particularly nice when watching videos or when playing games. And beneath that, we have your screen timeouts. Now, this is basically going to determine after how much inactivity do you want your screen to automatically turn off. Now, the shorter you set this, the better for your battery life and arguably the better security, right? Let's say you have your phone on your desk and you forget to lock it. Having it automatically lock faster will be better, but of course, it can get annoying if it locks too fast. I think 15 seconds is overkill. Personally, I like the 2-minute mark. I set it a little bit higher, again, just because I'm filming, so while I'm talking, my phone doesn't lock, but most of the time, I like this to be set to around 2 minutes. What is also cool is you can have this option here to keep the screen on when viewing. It's going to occasionally use the front camera to see if you're actually looking and interacting with your phone, and then if you are, it's going to keep your screen on. So that's something I do recommend you turn on as well, and set it to around 2 minutes for most people. And this next one I think is a really underrated setting that I definitely recommend you turn on, and that is the edge panel. So let's go ahead and turn this on, and let me show you what this is. So as you can see along the side of my phone here, we now have this new panel right here, and it's going to allow you to quickly access certain applications. You can even see a full app viewer right here, and launch any application or group of applications right from that edge bar. So edge panel. So to do this, we can actually tap into this and modify this further. So we can choose between different types of panels. You can choose between contacts, between apps, even certain widgets. I like to have apps. I think that's most useful. And of course, here in Edit, you are able to customize this. So this here is your edge panel. Let's say I want to add one. Let's say I want to add Amazon, for example. I can do that. I can add contacts, eBay, whatever I want. And of course, remove them like so as well to keep it more narrow. Great to have this functionality. And again, to be able to access this anywhere within your phone, whether you're within another application or not, you can quickly pull this up from the side and have access. Now, I have my bar here along the left side, but if we tap into handle, we can actually change the position from left to right. There it is right there. I'm left-handed, so I normally have it on the left side. You can also change the height of the bar. You can move it up or down. Now, my recommendation is to actually set it just above the midway point of your screen. Why? Is because if you're swiping to the left to go back in an application, you don't want to accidentally activate your edge panel. So if you have it slightly above that, the two will be separated enough. You can also change the color, the opacity. You can really extend this or customize this quite far. But the essential ones here really are going to be your position and which side of the screen you want it to be on. But this is a feature I definitely recommend. I don't see many people using it, but I think it's really useful. To be in another application, quickly pull this up, boom, and then access and quickly jump into another app. Super useful and very hidden and discreet, as it doesn't really take up any screen space otherwise. And this next one might be a little bit controversial, but for me this is essential and I have a very strong view on this, and that is your navigation bar, and that is to switch it from buttons by default over to the swipe gestures. Now, the button layout that you can see right here is going to be the default, and of course, if you're a long-time Android user, you probably grew up with this, you're used to this, and it's great. I know, nostalgic, but the swipe gestures are better. Let me show you why. First of all, it takes up much less screen space, right? Instead of having 3 of those large buttons taking up around, what is that, like 5 or so percent of your screen space, you have a very tiny bar here at the bottom, allowing you to see more of your content on your screen. Plus, the swipe gestures themselves are just quicker. To go through your quick settings to swipe home, I think are really useful. And probably my favorite feature of this quick gestures is, check this out, I can actually swipe between my open apps by swiping along the bottom of the display, something you can't do if you have the button layout. So all in all, I hope I've made my case for the swipe gestures. I think this is the way to go, and this is where you change that in your display settings. Oh, and also beneath that, you have circle to search. You want to make sure that this here is turned on. This is one of the new many AI features that came with the S25. What you want to do is tap and hold your the swipe bar here at the bottom, and that will allow you to circle anything on screen to quickly Google search it if you like as well. Kind of a useful feature. Let's say you're watching a video or something and you find a product that you want to circle. You can do that and simply activate it by pressing and holding that bar. But you want to make sure that this setting first is turned on. And from the display, let's take a look at a security setting that I recommend you change, and that is called invisible passwords. So let's go ahead and first show you how to change it. So what you want to do is go into settings, and then we're going to scroll to where we find security and privacy. There it is right there. Tap into that, scroll to where we find more security settings. And then in here, you want to turn off a feature called Make Passwords Visible. Now, you know how when you're typing in a password, every letter you press, it will briefly show before turning into, like a black dot, right? It will briefly show the letter. So if someone hypothetically is looking over at your screen, they can catch your password. Or maybe even I don't know, a security camera looking at your phone could technically capture your password, right? And that shouldn't really be needed. So I really like this feature. Being able to turn this off means that those letters never show. Yes, of course, you're still tapping the keyboard, of course, but it still makes it harder for someone to say follow or say looking over your shoulder, particularly in public if you ever have to enter your password. This is just a more secure way to do it, to make sure that your passwords are more private, as well they should be. So to do this, you want to make sure to turn this setting off. Now I want to show you a setting that will allow you to have more apps on your home screen by changing the grid size. So to do this, we're going to go into settings and then scroll down to where we find home screen right here. And then in here, we have the home screen grid size, and we can tap into this here and get a preview of what each looks like. So by default, it's going to be 4:6. We can actually change it to 5:6. And as you can see, the icons will become a little bit smaller and will allow you to have 4 rows in the width, and you can have up to 6 icons here in the height. And versus 4 to 6, you have 5 to 6. You'll have more icons, particularly in the width here, allowing you to have more icons on your home screen, more widgets as well by extension. So depending on how you use your phone, and also I think which model phone you have, this may be useful to change as well. But I like to keep it at 4:6, but if you do want more apps, this is how you do it. And sort of on the subject of the home screen, I want to show you a quick setting that has to do with folders that is new specifically to One UI 7. So you can see here, I've got a folder and it looks pretty different here along the bottom of my screen. What I can do is shrink this, and this is how a default folder looks like, right? Probably how you recognize it. You tap into it and you can access and choose which app. However, you can now actually expand your folder. So if we tap on that, you can go ahead, press and hold, tap on enlarge. As you can see, this setting will now make that folder larger and allow you to pick an application without having to first tap into it. So it kind of saves you a step. So instead of having to first open the folder, launch Chrome, I can simply view the folder and then instantly tap Chrome to launch the application. So this is again a way to have more apps on your home screen, and I think make the folder more useful. This is something I really like. I think it's a pretty smart feature of Samsung to include here. This next setting is one that I know the battery saving people out there will want to change, and that is your auto wake setting. So to do this, we are going to tap into settings and then scroll down to where we find advanced features right here. And then scroll to where we find motions and gestures. And in here, you can turn on or off lift to wake. Now, what does this do? Well, if this feature is on, it means that when your phone is off and you pick up your phone, it's automatically going to wake up the display, detecting that you have in fact picked it up. Now, this is a feature that I actually like to have on, so I like to turn this setting on. However, if you are really keen about saving battery life, this is something you can turn off and it will save you some battery. So your option is there. Again, I like to have it on, but you can turn this off, and this is where you change that setting. And beneath that, we also have the option to enable or disable a double tap to turn your screen on or off when it is off. So as you can see here, it is off. I can double tap it, and that will turn it on, double tap again, and that is going to turn it off. So I think that's quite useful, and I like to turn that on, both settings on here as well. This next one is useful if you've just got your new Galaxy S25 and say you are not restoring from a backup from your old phone, but you're starting fresh and you have to download all of your previously purchased or downloaded apps. And of course, you can go into the Play Store and find all of them one by one, but there's actually a much quicker way to quickly find all the apps that you've previously downloaded. So let me go and show you how to do that. So what you want to do in the Play Store is tap on your profile here on the top right here, and then from here we're going to go into manage apps and devices, and then here we're going to tap onto manage, and right here you're going to see a list of all the applications that you have previously downloaded. You can see you can even select multiple at once to either delete or to download them in bulk. And if you want to know which applications you've previously downloaded but are not yet on your current device, you can tap onto this setting here and switch it over to not installed. And it's going to show you all the applications that you've previously downloaded but that aren't yet on your phone, and allow you to quickly download them from there without having to individually search them up and find them that way. This next setting is something I highly recommend you run, especially if you've just bought your new Galaxy S25, whether it's new or whether it's pre-owned, and that is to run a full device checkup. Now, to do this, we're going to download an app, or open an application rather, that is called the Members app. Now, this will be by default installed on your Galaxy S25. Go ahead and tap into that application, and then from here, we're going to tap on the bottom right of the screen here to support. And then here we can run phone diagnostics. We can go and tap get started here. As you can see, it's going to run a super thorough device checkup, checking the hardware, checking the software. You can see he's got 22 steps to go through here. Now, you do have to kind of interact there. Sometimes it will ask you whether you've heard the sound, or it's going to ask you to press a button or touch a part of the screen. So it takes a couple of minutes. But what this is going to do is give you a very thorough rundown and checkup of every component of your device. This way, the device you've just received, you want to make sure it's 100% in working order. This is the way to do it. Now here, there you go. As you can see, it's starting to ask me for permissions here. I'm going to disable that just for a second there, and there we go. If I go back, it's going to then give me a list of all the things it's checking and which it's passed, which it's not passed. And again, you do have to act. There's some action required for some of these, as you can see. But what you want to do is run through all these systems diagnostics, especially if you're buying a phone pre-owned or used. You want to make sure that it's fully working. So within the Members app, run through this and do your full device checkup and make sure everything is running before you go ahead and purchase. And of course, if something is not, you either don't buy it or negotiate for a discount. And this last setting that I want to show you is to enable a feature called offline finding. So to do this, we're going to jump into the settings app here, and then we're going to scroll to where we find security and privacy. There it is. And then you want to scroll down to where we find lost device protection, and you want to make sure that this here is turned on. Allow this phone to be found. So what that's going to do is it's going to, even if your phone is turned off, it's going to help locate your Samsung phone using other Galaxy phones around it, even when it is offline. So it does this via Bluetooth and Wi-Fi signals and cellular signals to give a rough approximation for where your phone is. This is really great. Again, if ever your phone is lost or stolen, and let's say even if it's turned off, you'll still have some idea of where this phone is. So this is a setting that I definitely recommend you turn on, again, for that peace of mind if ever your phone is lost or stolen. And there you have it. Thank you so much for watching this video. If this video was helpful to you, be sure to subscribe to see more content like this in the future, and also leave a like. It really helps out the channel. And let me know in the comments, which setting did you enjoy the most? And if you have any that you'd like to add, I'd love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments as well. Thanks again so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.